Our guest today is Jennifer Woodward, who heads up the business school for Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. Starting a business is probably the greatest leap for many health coaches. It's something you may have never done before, and while your passion for helping others is what got your foot in the door, you feel totally stuck or lost as to what to do next, and then what to do after that, and then what to do after that. This is the task that many health coaching schools like FDN have shown up for. In this conversation and in her training, Jennifer encourages her students to take a stepwise approach to launching their business that just makes sense and makes it easy. So here's another business pep talk for you coaches to help keep you marching toward your goal of starting something so you can help more people. Please welcome Jennifer Woodward. Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
All right, we got Jennifer Woodward in the house. How are you today?
Hello, ladies. I'm doing great today. How are you?
We're doing great. We're excited to talk to you. You have a very interesting background, particularly around that business of health coaching. And you come from a fellow school, which is awesome. We love to talk shop. So I want you to tell your origin story. We'd like to invite each guest to just talk about kind of how you got here, what got you started in this arena, and what led you to where you are today.
For sure. So I think there's two parts of my story. There is the how did I actually become a health coach myself story. And then there's the how did I create business school story. So I'll break both of those down in a really quick nutshell. I have 4 kids, and after the birth of my third child, I had these hormone issues from health, right? I had no idea what was going on with my sleep. I was having panic attacks. My mood was all over the place. I couldn't lose weight. My hair was falling out. I had all these increasing food sensitivities. I've heard this story so many times before, and I feel like women just aren't educated enough to realize that, man, your hormones are going crazy because there's so much stress in your life. So through a series of events, I found Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, like you were talking about, one of your sister schools, and was able to start running all these functional labs on myself to realize the root cause of some of my hormone issues, my gut issues, my food sensitivity issues, my thyroid issues, and everything just made sense. And so I became really entrenched in that world, super passionate about not only helping myself, but then helping all these women around me. I started talking about how I was feeling, and all my friends and family were like, well, I want that. How do I do that? And so thus, grew my business. And as I became, more established in the business world, I went to go work for Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. I ran their graduate association for 3 years. And that naturally led into the creation of FDN Business School, because we had all these grads. We had 900 grads practicing internationally who had no idea how to start a business. I was getting these questions over and over and over again in my graduate association, from the most mundane, like, how do I plan a day as an entrepreneur, to, how do I attract clients and charge, large, sums of money that I know I can command as a well-trained health coach. So, I created FDN Business School in 2021. Right now, we have about 250 students in the school. It's been fantastic. It is definitely one of the reasons I get up in the morning. So, my background is a little bit more entrepreneurial. I remember when we were really young, I have 2 sisters. And when we were young, we were the ones doing like neighborhood carnivals and selling, mistletoe at Christmas time and little baggies to our neighbors, and selling lemons in the summer. I've just always had this drive to create and produce. And so it was just kind of a natural evolution for both of those things to come together for me at FDN. And that's part of why I'm here today.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I always think it's so interesting when we hear from folks who identify as being entrepreneurial from the get-go. There's 900 students, you said, in business school right now.
In the graduate association. So in business school, we have about 250. Yeah.
250. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. So of your 250 students in business school, do you have a sense of how many, like what percentage of them are naturally entrepreneurial versus not? So I guess my question is, do we need to be entrepreneurial at the core?
That's a great question, Erin, because I was just thinking as you said that, I could probably count the percentage points like on one hand. Honestly, most people come into this space because they have their own health issues or they're passionate about serving others with their health issues. And most people aren't thinking about starting a business when they come into the health coaching space. That's kind of an afterthought. And so I'd say 5 to 9% of people actually have experience either starting a business or just being entrepreneurial in general. It's not a skill that is taught. It's not a skill that most people have inherently.
Great. So there we go. So anybody listening who thinks, boy, I'm all alone here, I don't have an entrepreneurial bone in my body. Most of us don't. Most of us, to your point, didn't enter this field to become an entrepreneur. It literally, you said it was an afterthought. That's so true. It's kind of like, oh, darn, now I have to build something. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, it definitely is. People are like, well, oh, I need to make back all the money I've just invested in my education. And, for a lot of us, a lot of women are health coaches, and a lot of women I see, are doing this as a second career. They realize their first careers just burnt them out. They become really passionate about what they're learning in their health coaching certification program. And I've had so many women tell me, I told my husband I was going to start making money. I don't know how to do that. So they feel like that immediate kind of imposter syndrome, and also that internal drive and the nervousness that they have. Will I succeed in this space? I spent all this time and money, getting here, and now what?
Yeah. It's funny. Erin and I joined our school. We were the first 2 employees, right? We were hired within months of each other. And we got together at our first team meeting to talk about what we want this to be. And Erin and I were adamant from day one. This is the one missing link in every program, is teaching people how to actually start a business. And I'm just absolutely thrilled that FDN is on board with that, to the degree that you've actually invested in a business school and in growing that, because we were talking about this in another podcast, that I think that, I don't want to call it a dirty little secret, but it kind of is. And it's not unique to health coaching. It's all coaching, whether it's a life coaching school, business coaching, that something like 80% of the people that earn a certificate are not earning a full-time income doing it. It's a really high percentage. And look, there's a lot of people that go to college that never use it. So I'm not saying 100% of people have to be using their certificate full-time, but it should at least be 50. I would like to get us to at least 50% of people that have a certificate are using it full-time, but that's a big lift from where we are right now.
Oh, it's absolutely huge. And I think that people come into this space and they're sold a false bill of goods, because you look at any Instagram ad that's going to pop up that's targeted a demographic like we have, and they're all, make multi 6 figures as a health coach. I pulled in $100,000 my first year as a health coach. I'm like, that is BS, people. Like, you show up in your business, you work just like anything else. If I'm opening up like a supplement company or a car wash, like, I have to work to build my clientele. It's the same thing in the online space. And I think people just think, well, I'm going to get my certification, I'm going to create an Instagram, profile, and boom, people are going to come in the door. That is not true, unfortunately. So let's just dispel that myth right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thank you.
Massively. Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to do that. There's the real talk. Something, I don't know what it is. Is it because it's, for many of us are doing this digitally, so there's low overhead. It's just like, I put my website out there and my social platform, and now the clients are just going to show up, and maybe there's something to that. Because I always share this anecdote. I started a brick and mortar business a couple of years ago in a completely different field, and made $0 the first year. Had a great successful year, made $0 because of the overhead, the investment to get the business started, broke even, let's call it. And I wasn't surprised by that. So I'm wondering why. Well, I guess the reason why coaches are surprised that it's harder is because, unfortunately, they are fed this narrative, this multi 6 figure right out the gate narrative. So we are here to be very, very real with you all, that it's not quite that romantic. However, this is my opinion. I'd love to know what you think, Jennifer, what your students think. Building it is so fun. It's so fun. And I reflect back on the first 1, 2, 3 years of my business, and how just wonderful it was to be creating something new. And I long for those early days in some ways, not to over romanticize it, but it can be fun. I think it's a reframe.
I 100% agree with you. And I feel like inherently, also, again, I know the demographic we're speaking to. Yes, we have male health coaches. We love you, male health coaches, but most of us in this space, honestly, are women, and women are inherently creative. They love to produce, they love to nurture, they love to push out. And so I think that is something that draws a lot of people just to the concept of business in general. Oh my gosh, I get to like create a brand kit. I get to create an Instagram profile, do like a brand shoot. Like those are the fun and sexy things when it comes to, sort of creating a business, but it's the boots to the ground, like getting your DBA and hiring a CPA and, filing, to create a business in your state and your local principality that isn't as quite sexy as some of those other things. However, you're totally right, Erin. Like the birth and creation of a business is truly a beautiful thing. And it becomes so beautiful, I think, because it's inherently yours. That's the other beauty of being an entrepreneur is we're not beholden to someone else. Like all of those things you have in your gut and your psyche that have been just, percolating for so long, you actually get to push out and create and produce in your business. I just think people have, this wide lens when they're looking at what that might end up to be. And so what we try to do with business training is just focus that and make sure that you're taking those things like linearly, step by step, not putting the cart before the horse. Man, you can get out there with a beautiful Instagram profile, but if you don't have a program and if you're not set up to take payments and if you have no calendar system, you're going to have a really hard time actually making money.
I'm chuckling. I'm chuckling so hard because you said cart before the horse. And in the business course that I teach at our school, I was like, okay, gang, this is cart stuff. This is horse stuff. I'm like, and they come with questions. I'm like, that's cart stuff. That's cart. Put that in the cart. We're working on the horse. I love that you brought
get there.
I mean, I've socialized this cart horse analogy with my business students so much that they're like, is this cart or is this horse? I just thought that was.
I love that. I love that.
But I think this sort of draw to the six-figure number comes from a couple places, but I think the big one is something you alluded to, that for many people, this is a second career. So you've got these people that are used to earning a certain income. The idea of making a career change and having it, the expectation that it's somehow going to be linear and they're going to be earning the same thing in a completely different field in an area they haven't built up cred, an area they haven't built up reps or clientele is unrealistic. But it's this, well, how do I make that change? Because so this is one of the things we wanted to talk about. There's two big areas that seem to hold people back. One of which is this: I have this career, I'm earning X amount of dollars, and I need to be able to earn at least something similar, if not more. That's the only sort of responsible thing to do for me as a parent or an individual that has obligations that I can't let go of. And Erin and I have some thoughts on that. We're like, hang on to your day job, man. You don't like jump ship. You've got to build this thing on the side. So that was one of the topics we really wanted to dive into a little bit. If people are feeling stuck and they're like, I don't have the time for this. I'm working X amount of hours. I've got all these kids. Like, how do I do this? And I think you gave us a glimpse, a bit of a linear fashion here in terms of how do you build this business while trying to juggle all these other things?
Man, okay, there are a lot of questions in that statement. So yes, let's dive into all of them. I think just kind of starting off, people who already have a career or people who might not necessarily have a career but want to jump into a career, but they're busy with, being a wife and mom or homeschooling or being really active in their community. They're like, how am I going to make time for this? You would just do it the way you would do anything else. In my former life, I sold drugs. I love telling people that I was a pharmaceutical sales rep. It was all legal, but the drug industry is very lucrative, right? It was a great job. I loved it. But now I realized, I was doing all the wrong things. And being on this side of kind of like an alternative provider, number one, is a lot more intrinsically motivating for me and just like empowering. I love this work of teaching people how to take care of their bodies instead of putting a Band-Aid on. But number two, it took me a long time to build up to, the salary that I was making in that career. I spent 6 months in Chicago training for that career. It was paid, but it was just a menial salary, all the work that went into that and building up clientele with doctors and my route and my reps. it took a long time to do that. And that's a traditional career, where someone's hiring me and I'm working for a corporation. So what I tell my students is you have to think of this very similarly. You are building a new career. You don't just hop into like this business in a box. Obviously there are places where we can incorporate some of those things for you on like the tech side or the program side, but you still have to show up to work every single day, be that part-time or full-time. And for people who are kind of segueing into, this being a full career, they have an objective with a dollar amount that they earn. Like the example I gave earlier, if I'm opening up like a bakery or a supplement company or a car dealership, none of those things are successful right away, unless you like buy a franchise, right? Which we can't really do in health coaching at this point. So you just show up, you open your shop, you take steps 1 through 10 every single day that you do every single day. You discipline yourself to do the hard work so that the fun things can come, right? Now, as a a busy working mom, like I said, I have 4 kids. I have multiple streams of income. That's the other thing I wanted to tell, your listeners. Like if you look at any successful business person, if you've got like a real estate, investor or a financial advisor or anyone in a business space is most likely pulling in multiple revenue streams, some of those being passive income streams. So I think the one of the drawbacks of being in this space is someone thinking, man, I'm going to pull in, 3 $10,000 clients every single month in a linear fashion. Oh, hell no. Oh, that is never going to happen. Maybe when you're 10 years in business, maybe, right? But even then you have to account for the ebbs and flows that naturally come in business. For me, people are really excited in January. They're really excited in April. They're really excited in September, but I've got some lulls in October and March, and I have to account for that with my financing and what I'm doing, pouring into my, my programs and building things. And I realized really early on that I was going to have to make sure that I'm also busy in February, March, and May. And some of those things might have to be more passive income streams or alternate revenue streams. And so that's something that people need to realize too, is you can't just rely on one source of income for, your business if you were truly making this a career. Right. Mm-hmm. If it's a second income, if your family is not reliant on your income, then you have a little bit more wiggle room and you have a little bit more time. But, supplements, building a business school, running group coaching programs. I do independent contract work for other, health coaches that, those bolster me in times that my business is naturally going to be a little bit slower. And so that's kind of the hustle that a successful entrepreneur really needs to take ownership of. Things don't come to you. And I think that's the problem with like manifest culture, honestly. Like, I'm not going to manifest $10,000 clients a month. I'm going to go work my ass off, to make sure that work is done, because that's what you would do in any other job, right? You have to perform.
That's right. I mean, the analogy of, we talked earlier about some people making career changes. That's not everybody's story, but if it is, the very first job, we all had out of university paid us a crap wage and we still have to show up and grind every day. And then over the years, we start to earn more, and it's just honestly no different. But I really am grateful that you brought forward the multiple income streams, this idea of cobbling together the income that's going to start to satisfy your financial needs so you can feel empowered to leave your job and to say, hey, I'm doing this full time. We do have to de-romanticize this idea of having the full predictable client roster, because it does ebb and flow. For example, I have a short duration group program. I don't like to call it a challenge. I'm tired of that word challenge, to be honest with you, because it's not a challenge. I'm teaching people my methodology in 21 days. And I launched it last week because I know that in September, I get a glut of clients, like one-on-one clients in the summer. I don't know why, but in September, they're busy or whatever. So it's a good time to run this group program. And boom, got 100 people in the group program for 21 days. That's going to keep me busy for a month. And it's my whole monthly income for September. Check. Done. Some of those are going to convert to one-on-one clients in October. I know they will, so I'm good to go. And there's this predictability, or I'm going to call it predictability, that you only get through practice. You only get through actually going to work and putting in the reps. And so, yeah, we're not manifesting here. Gosh, I'm so glad you threw that idea under the bus. How does that even work? We have to put in the reps and enjoy doing it. I mean, it's a calling at the end of the day, so we get to do it.
Yeah. The universe doesn't know you're there unless you're engaging in it and actually doing things in it. I mean, the whole notion that you can just throw a thought out into the universe and that it will manifest. I mean, the thought needs to be there, because without the thought, there's no action.
Yeah.
But you got to take the action. You got to do the thing, And so you've got, like, getting back to this, adult who's perhaps holding down a job or has 4 kids or super busy. Do you have some advice that you give people in terms of how to maybe time block or prioritize and what activities they should be focused on first? I mean, Erin and I have our thoughts, but I'd love to hear more about what you teach there.
Yeah, I do think a successful entrepreneur needs to be structured and regimented, just like any other job. You would have a task of things that you have to get done at your place of business. And I think an entrepreneur needs to be really intentional about doing those things as well. I have a really specific, structured morning time that served me well. Like I do get up early. I make sure I'm doing like an hour and a half of work before my kids even get up, because that's quiet time. Like I will drink my coffee. I have my own like personal quiet time sitting there where I'm like mapping out the day, taking a minute. I don't feel like things are happening to me at that point because I'm being intentional about setting the flow for the day. So, answering emails, doing busy work, working on programs, doing things that really need my focus helps because I'm drinking coffee at that moment and I'm not, entirely, my focus is there. But then I try to be present when my kids are up. I'm making breakfast. I'm talking with them about the day, packing their lunches and having some time with my husband. But then, man, once that stops, then I'm back into business mode. And I do feel like having a calendar, blocking off time, not only for your appointments, but also for, project creation and course creation, and taking some time like every single day to do a little bit of research. Because that's another thing about entrepreneurs is, we think that we just need another class and another, title. That's not necessarily what you need. You need a little bit more like boots on the ground action. Like, are you trying to learn Reels? Are you trying to learn, how to use ManyChat? Are you trying to utilize AI? Like, do a little bit of forward thinking research throughout your day so that you can stay on top of things. All of those things, though, I will literally mark out on my, my notebook. But then I also put into my actual work calendar. And as a health coach, it's important for me to also take care of myself. So on my calendar, I'm putting in like the days that I lift. I'm putting in, walking time. I'm putting in planning my meals and going to the grocery store, because I'm not going to live an inauthentic life with my clients. Like, these are things I'm passionate about and why I'm an entrepreneur. So I can go out to my barn and lift, but really that structure and that regimented time of putting yourself on the calendar and things with your business on your calendar. It's not just appointments with clients. It's like, hey, I'm sitting down and working on my content creation from 2 to 3 p.m. And once that appointment's over, I'm going to take a little break, but really being intentional. And I totally get being busy. I'm also homeschooling my 8th grader, which is another like thing on my plate, but I block it out on my calendar, from 9 to 10:30, I have nothing for work. So we're sitting down and we're reading about ancient Babylon.
Oh my gosh. I look back to when I was building my business, and like you, I'm better in the morning than I am at night. By nighttime, I'm fried. So to try to do stuff after work really didn't work for me. But so I would get up, and like you, depending on the energy I had, an hour to an hour and a half in the morning before the kids got up from school. Then I went and actually did my day job. If I didn't have a working lunch, I would utilize that somehow. I definitely needed downtime. I needed to be able to kind of eat my lunch or whatever, but there was always something when you're a busy person, time blocks of 15 minutes can be meaningful, and I can check something off the list and get it done. I knew my best workout time was the 4:30 class or whatever at the CrossFit gym. So I went and then I came home, and that was family time. And I made sure I got in bed because I had to be up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning in order to, and then I was able to really block time on the weekends. I had kids that played travel sports, but it wasn't 24/7. And you know what? I got up on the weekends. I wasn't sleeping till 10. I got up and I could put more time. And so it's have some grace. If you're trying to build this and maybe you have 5 to 6 hours a week, you're not going to get to 6 figures in a year. You're not. But look, whatever, let's say the average health coach certification program costs somewhere probably between $4,000 and $7,000, depends on the program and whether you jumped into a discount offer or something, right? If you're priced right, you bring in 3 to 4 clients, your course is paid for. But the important part is continuing to move forward and finding out when your brain works well, when you can be productive. Because there's nothing worse than sitting down when you're brain dead after the kids go to bed and trying to get something done.
Right. Yeah, that's not an option in my life either. I'm like, that's just, no, I know myself. And that's the thing about being an entrepreneur too, is you get very real with yourself very quickly. When I was an employee, it was really easy to like complain about my boss or complain about my doctors or feel like I'm part of a cog, in a wheel. But as an entrepreneur, you quickly learn your strengths and weaknesses. And that's a good thing. I mean, you realize the things that you can shore up on, that you might need to ask for help with, that you can do a little bit more training or self-reflection on. But then you also realize, actually, I'm great at, content creation. I'm great at building relationships. I'm great at time blocking. Like those are the things that you can just focus on and start to grow and build and evolve in the business. And those are the things that kind of keep you going. It's the other thing I kind of wanted to touch on is with business and being an entrepreneur, you have to weather all of those seasons, just like being a woman, like with your menstrual cycle or, being a human with the seasons. Like it's the same thing with business. It took me a couple of years to really get that. And I remember my husband and I like having this talk multiple years in a row. He's like, just chill. The clients are coming back. They always do. You're just in a lull right now. You don't have to go spend $20,000 on a business coach because that, your business is simply cyclical. So that's one of the other things you kind of learn about yourself too, as an entrepreneur, that if you're patient, if you're persistent, if you're consistent, the business will continue to grow if you're putting in the work. It's not going to all fall apart, and you do grow more through harder times in your business. It's totally cliche, but it's 100% true than you do when things are going well.
Yeah. Patient, persistent, and consistent. Gosh, that sounds like advice a health coach might give their client. I'm never not stunned by the parallel. And so I always like to plant that little sound, that little bug in health coaches' ears. You're going to ask your clients to be patient and consistent, and you have to walk that talk as well. So we're down this garden path of what, Laura kind of queued up this question, like what are the first things coaches need to do? And we're talking this intention. So let's set some intentional time, like be intentional with your energy as you build this thing, and set time aside in your calendar so you can manage everything that needs to be managed. What else? Like where else do coaches need to start to build their business? What are the essential foundational things everyone should be focusing on first?
Yeah. What I see a lot with my students is they're paralyzed by too many things to do. They're thinking at, the 10,000-foot view when they haven't done the basics. And so in our first module in business school, we have the $1 Million Week, right? And so that is from the $1 Million Morning book. It's a fantastic resource, but it's going through step-by-step, Monday through Friday, week 1. What are you doing? So you're going and you're filing a DBA. You're getting a business license. If you're selling supplements, you're getting a wholesaler's permit in your area. You're establishing your Facebook presence, you're establishing your Instagram presence, you're setting up a website or landing page if that's something you need to do, setting up your calendar, setting up a way for people to actually contact you so you have a structure. You can't sell anything if you're not an actual business. So you figure out, do you need an LLC? Do you need an S Corp? Are you operating as a sole proprietor? My advice for people starting out your first year, unless you have a large number of assets that you're worried about, is operate as a sole proprietor with your social security number. You don't have to worry about getting an EIN at the beginning because you don't have any clients. Once you're actually making money and you have a business, then you can roll into hiring a CPA and a lawyer and converting over to an S Corp or an LLC. But you do have to have those foundations in place. You need insurance coverage as a health coach. It's not expensive, and it's different from your own family's insurance. It's about $200 to $300 to protect yourself, up to $3 million for a year as a health coach. So those really standard, like basic things need to be in place. And those are things that we teach, get those done so that you have that monkey off your back, that weight is off your chest. Now you've established your business and you can move on to the next things. How do I start getting clients? You can have the best program in the world, but if you've never done any market research, if you have no idea who you're serving, if you have no idea what your program actually looks like and how you're going to move people through the funnel of your business, then it all becomes, unimportant. So we teach people how to do market research, right? Are you getting out on Facebook? If you're in the pickup line with other moms, are you, listening to what they're talking about, how they weren't sleeping last night or how their periods are all wonky? Are you asking pertinent and targeted questions on your social media channels? starting to utilize it for business instead of just posting pictures of your dog and kids. These are some of the things that are really practical, short-term things. Like none of those things take more than an hour at a time, right? Even driving to your local like government offices, filing paperwork and driving all the way home could take less than an hour. But once those things are done, then and only then are you ready to move on to the next phase of your business.
Amazing. So it sounds like the next phase of the business is this whole, how do I start getting clients conversation, which is the question we get asked the most in our school, for sure. I was excited because it's sort of like you kind of danced around the edges of this question of what is the thing you're selling and to whom, right? Because health coaching isn't a thing people are buying per se. So the specific solution for whom, what are you I asked my business students to declare themselves an expert in something, and you wouldn't believe the cringing I received back. Like, oh, I'm not an expert. It's like, well, you better be. People are out there searching for an expert. So what are you the expert in? Like, let's go. So take us through that a little bit. What are they selling to whom? Like, this is the clarity of the offer, who you are and what you do. Hi, it's Erin Power here, co-host of Health Coach Radio. Fitness has always been a part of my life. I used to train clients one-on-one, and I still teach group exercise classes to this day. Fitness is how I got started on my journey to health coaching. Working as a fitness trainer, I always wanted to go deeper than the reps and help my clients incorporate fitness and movement into every aspect of their lives. I instinctively knew that reaching fitness goals depends on pulling the focus from performance and putting it on holistic, sustainable change. And that's exactly what the Primal Fitness Coach certification shows coaches how to do. Your clients deserve to move better, feel better, be pain-free, enjoy exercise, and love their bodies. The Primal Fitness Coach certification teaches you how to train people to be fit for life, to avoid injuries, increase mobility, develop lean muscle mass, protect joints, and optimize metabolic health. This well-rounded functional fitness certification covers best practices for daily movement, strength training and conditioning, HIIT exercises, sprinting, and more. It also includes practical hands-on coaching training and business development lessons to help you launch and grow a profitable fitness coaching business. Visit primalhealthcoach.com to learn more about the Primal Fitness Coach certification.
Right. And, it's popularly known as niching down, right? Determining like, what is your 10,000 foot view into your 5,000 foot view into your very like laser focused point. Because as we always say, like in health coaching, you can't serve everyone or you're serving no one, right? So you want to make sure who you're actually serving. And this is what else I tell my students, you're not going to know that at the very beginning. Honestly, like part of the FDN program is we're running labs on people. So our students are worried they're not an expert in the labs. They don't know all the nuances of every marker. And really they do. By the time they come out of the course, they are experts in the labs. They just don't feel like it at first. And so I tell my students, you better go out and run those labs, run them on your sister, run them on your grandfather, run them on your best friend, get practice with what you're doing, practice what you're doing before you can determine who you actually want to serve. The caveat is you're not locked into that. Let's just say you want to serve, 30-year-old moms who are struggling with insomnia after having a baby, right? You might move over into working with 40-year-old men with foot problems. I don't know what it's going to be, but you have to try these things out, before you can absolutely feel secure in where you're going to start investing your money and your time, if that makes sense. So do a little bit of playing around. You do have that luxury as a brand new health coach. Then you're going to want to start figuring out who you actually want to serve. Because like Erin was saying, when I'm talking to someone, I don't want to tell them like, I'm a health coach. I do, that's what I am, right? But they don't care about that. The conversation quickly moves on. But if I tell them, I help perimenopausal women navigate the confusing time of perimenopause where they're struggling with weird periods and a weight gain of 5 to 11 pounds, seemingly without cause, and increasing insomnia, they're like, oh, let me tell you all my problems. That's me. Right. So that's what we try to do is figure out like, who am I? Who do I help? And what problem do I solve? And for health coaches, this is such a common issue. Don't use things that you're taught in your health coaching program, phrases and words that we're taught. Like people don't talk about hormones. They don't talk about root cause. Like that's not what they're searching on Facebook or Google or talking about with their friends at, parties, right? They're like, I can't freaking sleep or I can't poop. I hate it.
Exactly right. People are talking about the things they struggle with. And, I remember one time just being out to dinner with a group of my girlfriends in Chicago. And this is before I even really trended towards health coaching. But I had kind of solved my problem. And I was talking about all the things I had been struggling with prior to that. And one big one for me was this overwhelming brain fog. This sort of heaviness in my brain and this feeling of overwhelm to the point where I have a hard time focusing, which then just caused anxiety. And what am I missing? Which then just made it difficult for me to sleep because all the things that I kept telling myself I needed to remember because I didn't trust myself were circling around in my brain, and the number of women at the table with me at dinner that were like, me too, was almost all of them. And I knew then that was going to be my focus. And when I'm on the phone with people that are interested in becoming a health coach and they're asking about being a business, and I'm like, what we're teaching in our business structure too is how do you take everything that you bring to the table, by the way, because this is something we want to talk about, not just what you learned in your course, because you're right, that language doesn't work, but everything that you bring to the table prior to that, your past experience has value. How can you take that plus what you learned and package that into something that has value to somebody that solves a problem that they're willing to pay for? If you can't solve a problem, you don't have a business. And if the solution you have is something people aren't willing to spend money on, don't have a business. What you have is a hobby. And so those are the things that need to come to play. And every single woman at that table was like, oh my God, how did you solve it? They had them, at my fingertips.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing de facto market research. It would be unwise of anyone starting any business to not do market research. If I'm opening up a laundromat in an affluent area where everyone has not one, but two washing machines and dryers, that business is going to fail, right? My market research has been performed poorly. Same thing with your health coaching business. You actually have to get out there and talk to people. And I think that's what health coaches are kind of scared to do, especially at the beginning, because they're like, well, I don't want people to know what I'm doing just yet. Like, what if I fail? What if I don't do a good job? What if I can't solve their problem? Even right now, I'm running like a group coaching program. I am in there every day. I'm asking market research questions. These are like my lower ticket clients. I tell them straight up, I'm going to be like probing you with questions. I want your feedback. It's important to me. Like, you're my target demographic and I want to know how you feel. So I'm asking them, like, what is your main complaint? What is the thing that keeps you up at night? What other things have you tried in the past that have not worked? What would a perfect program look like to you? What would I have to promise you in order for you to actually invest in a high ticket item? They feel weird to ask those questions, but number one, by the time someone is actually talking with you in a professional capacity, likely you've built enough of that know, like, and trust factor to where they don't feel like this is a weird conversation. They're into it. These girls are into it. And I also tell them, if you answer all 5 of my questions during the course of our reset, you're entered into a drawing for a $50 gift card. Lululemon always helps people. But doing that really intentional information gathering is an integral part of running a successful health coaching business. So that's one thing I would love for your listeners to take away today is get out there and ask questions.
You already touched on this, and it's just a little sort of closing of the loop, because when we teach this to our students, they say, well, who am I supposed to ask? I don't have an Instagram follow. I don't have an email list yet. And you pointed out, it's like, get on your own personal Facebook page and ask the people who know you / pay attention, listen around the edges to what people are talking about. And that's how you can start doing those.
Absolutely.
Those right out the gate. Yeah.
100%. And I want to kind of loop some of the male listeners in here, because our school, because our primary founder is Mark Sisson, we actually get a lot of male health coaches. We get a lot here. And I feel like on our podcast, we end up speaking to women a lot for obvious reasons. But, men, I think you need to be especially targeted, because I do think that there's something about the male psyche that makes it difficult to ask for help sometimes, or to admit that something's wrong. And when they see another man who's walking the talk, out there talking about what it was he has struggled to overcome and how he overcame it, you will build trust a lot faster with men, because I think there's a tendency a lot of times for men to feel a bit alone.
For sure.
Yeah. And so I think it's even more important for men to get out there and really speak from their own experience and in a trustworthy fashion, and like, dude, I'm here to help. That's super important. And that leads me to kind of my next one too, in terms of talking about your story and your struggles. One of the other things we wanted to talk about was something you mentioned earlier, that a lot of people are brought to health coaching because they've had their own health journey. And many people, they get this like spark about how far they've come, even only halfway through their journey, right? How far they've come, but they still in their minds have a long way to go, but they want to be able to help people. And they're thinking in their minds, but who's going to want to work with me because I haven't reached the pinnacle of perfection yet? You know, I'm still working through my own. I feel like an imposter because I haven't figured it all out yet. I mean, we have our thoughts, but I'd love yours.
Love that you brought that up, Laura, because it's so common from people. It's, said outwardly, but then it's also like this implied inherent kind of thought, like, man, I am not perfect. So who am I to get out there? Like, I still struggle with my own gut issues. So how can I talk about gut issues? Like, I look like I'm a fake. And I tell my students all the time, how much better is it that you are empathetic and you truly understand where your client is coming from? I know maybe there's like a fertility coach out there who's never struggled with infertility. If I'm struggling with infertility, I want that woman who's gone through her own infertility struggles over the one who maybe hasn't. You know what I mean? The problem becomes so much more real and so much more deep for potential clients when you have this inherent deep understanding. And again, empathy, because that's a huge part of being a health coach. Empathy for what your clients are going through. So I do not see that as a weakness at all. I see it as a really big strength. And then I also see it as part of being human. Like, we're never going to be perfect. I always tell my own clients and my students, man, I've been working on my health for like 20 years, right? And I look at it as this journey up a mountain, right? You're always working, you're always kind of plodding along. Sometimes it's raining on the mountain. Sometimes it's night and you can't see where you're going, but you just keep moving up because that's the path that you're on. And that's not a bad thing. You literally never arrive. So take that, as an existential truth. It's a good thing. You don't want to arrive, right? You're always kind of working toward the next best thing. And there's always another little like trail to uncover on that mountain. But again, that's the beautiful part of being a human. It's a beautiful part of the journey that we're on in anything. I never want to arrive in being a parent. I never want to arrive in being a wife. You know what I mean? Why would I want to arrive in my own health journey? It kind of takes away that desire of like curiosity and learning. So imposter syndrome is a good thing. And I think that so many struggle with it because it's part of just being human, right? So I want people to understand that it can be definitely a strength because it keeps you learning and growing. It keeps you curious. It keeps you passionate.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you nailed it. You're in the sweet spot of empathy if you can still remember and connect to what you felt like at the beginning. Honestly, I think you touched on this a minute ago when we were talking about what are some of these essentials, and it's like, who are you? What problem do you solve for whom? The who are you piece. We ask our students to write their origin story. Why are you enrolled in this school right now? Like, what brought you here? And we want them to go back into the weeds of their health rock bottom. And for a lot of people, they didn't have a health rock bottom. Just want to be really clear. Like, I had a health rock bottom. Laura had a health rock bottom. You had a health rock bottom, Jennifer. But some people are like, I was pretty good and I got better, or my performance improved, or whatever. Whatever the origin was that brought you there, it really behooves you to remember that, because you don't ever want to be this untouchable, perfect person. Who's relating to that?
Nobody likes those people.
Yeah. So great. So I don't know, we're going to keep saying this to folks who listen, because it is another one of those very common things we hear, and you do too, is, but like to Laura's point, she keyed up the question for this exact reason. I'm not ready yet. I'm not perfect yet. Great. Great. Perfect. Wonderful. Let's move on. Let's harness that empathy that you have and use it and move on and quit worrying about that, frankly. It's not a going concern.
No, if you're not perfect, you're our people and you're going to be your clients' people. So that is, super important. Laura, you brought up like a really good point though, too, just about different, the way that men can kind of get out there. I feel like men are, relational, but just in a different way. And so something that we've seen our men be really successful with in gathering market research is to go out and do a free talk, to get out there in the community, maybe at a gym or a chiropractic office. And there are men, who are suffering, like you said, Laura, but maybe they're not going to be as vocal about it as women. So providing a service for people, providing education can be a really powerful tool for market research. You give a little in the beginning, and then you've got a warm audience who are ready to kind of talk about some of their own health issues. Like, actually, man, I haven't slept for like the last year, or I'm working out and I can't build muscle and I don't know what to do about it. And so there are definitely different ways to go about figuring out who your clientele are going to be, like who you would most resonate with if you are a man or a woman. And of course, women can do that too, and men can talk to people on the pickup line for sure. But just keep in mind that there's definitely options and you can always be learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny because my poor Brad, talk about him all the time, but he recently started on, like he went through a period for months where he was so tired he would come home from work and like just go to sleep. Like he'd fall asleep on the couch. He had no motivation to work out at all whatsoever. There were so many things where finally it was like, this isn't normal. It's not just me adapting to whatever. And he was talking to a friend who happened to tell him, hey, have you had your testosterone levels checked? And he was like, no, my testosterone's fine, and he's like, dude, get it checked. So he did. And it was unbelievably low, and he and I talked about, well, we could do this, all the more reason why this is the way I feed you. And when you decide to go out and eat pizza, probably, there's things that go towards supporting testosterone levels, but there are a lot of things in our environment that we don't have control over. And he's in his mid 40s. And anyway, so now he's working with somebody, but it took him finally just confiding in a friend about how he's been feeling. And a friend of his who's like, I felt the same way. Here's what I did. And boy, now that I'm doing this, now I'm working out more. I'm spending more time outside. All this other stuff that then helps support continued healthy testosterone levels.
Love that. Beautiful.
So you got to get out and talk about it. And look, one of the things I see trends in too is people that are midway through their journey, that like their way of holding themselves accountable is by talking about their journey somewhere on social media or on YouTube or some other medium where they're literally sharing their journey along the way, and they're sharing kind of what they're doing now. But the important thing too is showing pictures and examples of where they came from. And we talk about all the time how, look, you might not be, to what you said, having arrived. And again, who necessarily wants to be there, but you can absolutely bring people along the journey you've already traveled. You know it. And there are likely thousands of people that were where you were 5 years ago that would love to be where you are now. And so don't be afraid of that, and be honest about what you do and don't know. Be honest about what has worked for you, what hasn't, and all of this stuff. And I think the more honest you are, the more relatable you are, the more trust you build, the more people are like, hey, have you tried this? Where you can be like, I did, but it didn't work for me. And here's why I think, all this other stuff. And you just kind of become this, again, like it's an expert, not because you know all the answers, but because you've tried a lot of things and you've traveled a lot of ground and you're willing to talk about it.
Man, that story is so powerful. Story-based marketing, story-based business is huge. It's because, again, we're human. Like, we relate to other humans. Like, that's a really powerful tool because it establishes connection and relationship. And if someone's going to pay me $10,000 to work with me, they want a relationship. They want a connection. They want to know that I'm a human on the other side. And I love that idea of, bringing people along for your story, because it also imparts this kind of like multi-dimensional part of what you do as a health coach. It's not just like a single thing. Like, anybody can buy a $500 program online that helps them lose weight, right? But if you are really getting into the nitty gritty, like Laura was saying, like getting outside and, doing more of your time in the gym and being a more present father and husband, it sounds like those are the types of things that people, as Erin was saying at the beginning, will actually pay for. Like they'll engage into a contract with you if they realize a little bit more about you and what they do. Like nobody wants to sit down and watch an hour webinar about what I do. They don't. We've all done that. Everyone's over it. We're not doing that anymore. But if I'm pulling out little bits of my story, like on my Instagram or my Instagram stories or my Facebook or, little 1-minute videos, that becomes incredibly relatable. And it starts to build a relationship with me without, us having to be in the same room together. So that's a really important part of being a health coach too, is allowing yourself to be a little bit vulnerable. You're going to be anyways with your clients, like they're going to ask and you're going to tell them. So don't be scared of being that, person on social media. It's not like you have to tell all of your dirty laundry. That's not the point. The point is like, establishing a professional business relationship. But as both the girls pointed out, our story is inherent to who we are. It doesn't matter if you're here for yourself or for a family member or a friend, you do have an origin story and it's incredibly powerful. It can be used to your advantage as you build your business.
Yeah. So we're dancing now into marketing territory a little bit, and this idea of story-based marketing. I think the first thing that the pushback we get, when we encourage our students to do this is, feeling shy or embarrassed, or I don't really know how to do this. And what if I say something crazy or weird and people judge me for it? And first of all, no one's really paying attention at first, like truly. You don't have a following. Yeah. I mean, you don't have a following yet, so you can kind of just say what you want. But I think what folks are, I don't know what this programming is, but it's like, how can I go viral? What do I have to do to, play with the algorithm? And it's like, gosh, that's so cart. So cart. And I was thinking through, I've had a couple reels that kind of started to kind of maybe go viral. And I thought, oh boy, this is my moment. And then they just didn't. But one of the posts I ever did that got the most traction was sharing a story about how when I was severely insulin resistant pre-diabetic, which is my origin story, I would have to pull my car over and take naps when I drove anywhere because I couldn't stay awake behind the wheel of the car. So I just told this story like, man, I remember I was thinking back to how I used to have to pull the car over, and I've napped in every side street in this city because I had to, I just couldn't keep my eyes open. And people were like, wait, me too. Oh my gosh, I always nod off behind the wheel of the car. It was crazy scary to imagine that this is such an epidemic, right. But it is that crushing in your bones fatigue is a feeling of one of the symptoms of insulin resistance that nobody has ever connected to as being fixable. And it was one of the most impactful posts for my business, just a little off the cuff story that I didn't think anyone was going to pay attention to. And quite frankly, I don't think I had much of a following at that point, but that post still gets hits because that's kind of how people do engage with content. And the people who read that post 3 years ago when I posted it, some of them are coming into my client roster now. They're like, you know what? I've been following you for 3 years since you post the falling asleep behind the wheel post, and now I'm ready. 3 years. Yeah. Just showing up and telling stories, and they're ready. So it's not this one-to-one, I post, I get a client, I post, I go viral, I post, I get a huge following, I make a huge income. It doesn't work that way. We're telling the story. And the thing I always tell my students, and I'd love to throw this over to you, is you have to start talking about yourself and your story. No one's paying attention at first, but when they do find you, they're going to kind of start devouring this content. They're going to start to know you, the know, like, and trust. So you really do have to start telling this stuff in your social feeds, especially when you have no following, so that when people do find you, they can figure out what you're about and what you do.
100%. I love that. It's the analogy of like, no one gets married after the first date, right? Like you're not just hitting somebody once and thinking that, they're going to invest a lot of money with you. They don't know what you do. They don't know what you're about. They don't know your personality. And the other thing is that not everyone is going to jive with you. Like that's a beautiful thing about social media is you do kind of attract people who are like you. I want people who are like me in my program because they're going to work well through my program, right? Like people who aren't necessarily as type A as I am or whatever, aren't gonna do as well. And so it's a great kind of jumping off point for you determining your perfect client with how you show up on social media. And you do have to show up day in and day out. You do have to provide, content, just like you would do anything, for any other business, putting that content out there, being very consistent and letting yourself be a little bit vulnerable. You want people to get to know you. And this, my friends, is free marketing. This is not paid ads. You don't have to pay for any of this. This is just you on your phone telling a little bit about the fact that you used to have to pull over, on a side street to sleep because your blood sugar was so low. And like Erin said, that is something that other people deal with. If I put a post out there about how a GI map lab test is going to help find, Escherichia coli, everyone's like, that's super boring. No one cares about that. It's important to me because I'm a health nerd, and probably important to some of my colleagues, but not for getting clients. People are going to react and respond to that human element. So 100% show up, tell your story, be a little bit vulnerable. You don't have to be super vulnerable, but you do have to be relatable. And that is the whole point, you guys, of getting out there on social media and using it as a marketing tool, right? That's also the difference from switching over to your personal social media to now your business account. That's what I tell my students, just make sure that you're using your business account for business. It's okay to let people know that you're selling something. You have a business, if you're interspersing pictures of your dog or your lunch out with friends on your business social media, it's going to be a little bit confusing to people. But if you're on there promoting your business, both like externally and then a little bit internally through that storytelling, it's going to start building momentum. It's going to start attracting people naturally. It might not be fast, but it will happen.
That's right. And then I always go back to, what is that essay, The 1,000 True Fans? I just think it's such a useful essay. You have to Google it if anybody listening, if you haven't read it, but it is such a really interesting pep talk, especially for kind of like a health coach or anybody in this kind of business, which is you don't need 1 million fans to have a thriving business. 1,000, 100, 10 people willing to pay you $5,000, 100 people willing, you don't need an enormous following. You just need a focused following of people who really, really connect and resonate with your message. So you have to be messaging. If you're not messaging, this whole thing falls down, right? So rather than aiming for the quantity of followers or the quantity of likes, that's where people get preoccupied. I'm not going to bother posting because I'm not going to get enough likes. It's like, it doesn't matter. You need 100, you need 50, 25, 1. This is my joke, is like, I want to scale to 6 figures. Like, why don't you start with 3 figures and we'll take it from there? How do I get more clients? Why don't you work on getting 1 client? Truly, like, bring it down to brass tacks, right?
So good. So good. Yep. And I think that's the thing also that people kind of get confused about in this space. We see other people on Instagram and we get confused whether or not we want to be an influencer or a business owner. Influencers don't make a lot of money, people. I mean, some of them, of course, do, but they're there to, look good and to promote their products, right? If you are a business owner, you are there to build a business. And that's what you need to be laser focused on is this post helping me build my business? Could it possibly generate income? Could it possibly lead people to, my free Facebook group where then I'm running, this 21-day program and converting people over to a higher ticket program? You have to be really intentional with what it is you're posting and not get lost in the weeds of like, do I look perfect in this video? Is this the perfectly trending audio, for my video? Like, it doesn't matter. You just show up. It does not have to be perfect. Just like you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be consistent.
There's got to be something to be said for coming across as a serious business owner. And some of the trends that I see on social media don't seem serious to me. So it depends on, I guess, the type of business. If you're a bar owner and you're trying to promote karaoke night, maybe that's different than someone who's a health coach and they're trying to help support people who have some serious autoimmune issues. I don't know if I necessarily need my health coach to be dancing to whatever the hot number is and pointing at words, but that's what trends. And I think people do it because it gets attention and the social media platforms promote it. So, I don't know if I have thoughts one way or the other in terms of doing what it is the social media platforms want you to do because they're going to promote it versus trying to actually represent the seriousness of your business and sort of what you do. But most importantly, I guess this all comes down to what your audience wants and what's going to draw your client to you.
Yeah. And as I tell my students, there's no wrong way to build a business. Honestly, there's a better path to build a business, but you are going to make lots of mistakes. Like if you decide it's a Friday and you want to do a dancing reel because that makes you happy that day, like totally fine. Like it's going to be done and over in 24 hours. Then you go on and do your next reel. You can always delete it, whatever. So don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. But as Laura said, like you have an actual business. And so you just want to make sure that you are focusing on, again, is this bringing in clients? Can it generate income? And is it moving me to the next step in the evolution of my entrepreneurial business?
Yeah, 100%. And I would also encourage all health coaches, regardless of whether you have 100 clients or zero, when people ask what you do, tell them you're a health coach or whatever you're going to call yourself, right? That comes up a lot. I want to be a holistic health coach. Great. Call yourself a holistic health coach. There's like literally no law out there that says only people that, do this, there's no legal regulatory authority around that. So that's fine. Call yourself a holistic health coach, but get comfortable having that conversation and describing what you do in a way that the end client can grasp it, right?
Yep.
Because that's the other thing. Oh, I focus on improving the gut microbiome. People are like, I don't know what that is. I make sure that my clients can poop regularly. I mean, I don't know how you want to phrase that, but you got to your point, but own it and call yourself a health coach. You need to be able to embody that and say so with confidence. I've got the training, I've got the education. It's just a matter of getting my first client in the door. So do you have, before we let you go, in terms of like what that process is, that first client?
Yeah. Like how to acquire your first client.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So again, get all of your business structure in place. Make sure that you have a viable business before you are bringing clients into your business. So getting all the regulatory, documentation that you need, making sure that you're set up as a business, again, with a sole proprietorship, just getting all your ducks in a row there. Next, I would put some systems in place. So you need calendar, you need billing, you need a place to send people so that they can actually book with you. You can absolutely use like a landing page. I use Flowdesk. I teach that a lot to my students. You don't need a full website anymore. You can have a 1-page landing page. You can build it in less than 30 minutes and link your calendar invite to, that Flowdesk landing page. And that's what you can use on your social media platforms and your link tree or link in bio on your business Facebook page. So you can start drawing people in to book that, discovery call with you to see if you would even be a good fit. That is a great first way to start. Put that on your social media channels, put it on your email signature, make sure that people know how, once they're interested, they can actually book some time with you. Like that is a great place to start, but don't neglect that market research, because if you don't know what you're selling, if you don't know who you're selling to, no one will be coming in your door.
Very true. I love it. Awesome. So tell me a little, so you're the FDN Business School. Do you have to be an FDN grad? Can any health coach jump in there? How does that work?
So at this point, we are the only business school made by an FDN for FDN. So yes, it is FDN focused. There's principles that anyone can use, but it is very FDN focused. So if that's, an evolution for some of your listeners where they're like, hey, I actually want to run some of those labs, on myself or clients, we'd totally encourage you to go through the FDN course. And then you can hop on to business school, which we're selling at a 50% discount if you enroll in business school at the same time you grab the course. But it's just been, life-changing for me and life-changing for a lot of our students. So it is a fun thing that we get to offer. And I really appreciate you guys letting me chat about it today.
Yeah. I mean, we just want to elevate health coaching as a career, as a profession. I think for a long time, it was viewed as this path for, I don't know, it's a hobby, or it's like a part-time deal. I don't know. I think for a good 10 years there was a small segment of the population that really made this their life's work and their career. But a huge chunk of people kind of did it on a whim because it was their passion. It was a hobby for a while. And because it was kind of hard to do to make professional and earn money, it just kind of fell by the wayside. So I'm thrilled that both FDN here at Primal Health Coach, this is what we're committed to now. This is the next iteration, which is the certification is great. That's table stakes. You probably should have it. I guess legally, technically, you don't have to have it, but you have to have it. I think at this stage of the game, get that done. But the next iteration, and I think the schools and the programs and the organizations that embrace the fact that they need to help health coaches find their path, whether it's starting their own business or going to work for someone. There's thousands of jobs out there. What does that look like, and how do you do it? And, I'm just thrilled to have another fellow school really investing time, money, and effort into helping health coaches be successful in their career.
We love that partnership too, Laura. And I will just say personally, I've listened to the Sisson for over 10 years. So this was so much fun for me. I'm like, oh, that was the first book I ever bought on primal or paleo. I freaking love Mark Sisson. So I was so happy to be on with you guys today. Love what you're doing. Love, the collaboration that we have and the fact that you guys are elevating, what is true about really taking care of the body holistically. So thanks again for the opportunity.
You're awesome. Thank you so much.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.